All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for real people just like you right there, just like me here. This book here has been a great read thus far. I'm not completely done with it, but Ted Templeman, a platinum producer's life in music, and no, obviously Ted is not sending me a check for promoting his book, but look, I spent a lot of time looking at credits on albums, looking at the sleeves, looking at the jackets, and as a kid, you weren't really that concerned about the producer, but when I saw Ted Templeman, I knew it was going to be quality. Whether it was the Doobie Brothers, Little Feat, Van Halen, even Carly Simon, on at least one occasion, I believe, Ted Templeman produced, and Nicolette Larson. I think he did. I'm sure there's others that I can't remember off the top of my head. But Ted and engineer Don Landee, those two guys together usually meant that you're going to hear something really high quality. And the book talks at length about his relationship with Van Halen, all the albums and how they came about, and how some of them were really organic and others developed, like Diver Down, for instance, kind of developed because they recorded a single and then the record label's like, all right, you got to have an album, got to put out an album to have to go with this single. And that's what they did. In Diver Down, not a bad record, but some of the other albums I think stand up a little better because they were done with the intention of making an entire album. But when he talks about the song Jump, it's kind of interesting because it sounds like Ted wasn't a big fan of the song. And Eddie and Don and Alex, they all kind of went off. They were recording at the 5150 studio, which was like not even completely built yet, but mostly. And this was the first time that they had gotten away from their other recording studio, I believe Sunset Sound. And quite honestly, I don't think Ted was all that enthusiastic about everything, because as a producer, you tend to be a control freak. And Ted really did a good job at controlling how the product was made. I mean, he was high up within the whole Warner Brothers pyramid. And, he's kind of like, has to go to the shareholders meetings and say, okay, yeah, this new Van Halen album is going to be great. And all those shareholders are like, yeah, how great? How's it going? What can you tell us about it? So this album ends up being the last album that Roth is on, which is interesting. And what's more interesting is that Eddie really pushed the keyboard idea, like heavily. And, for Van Halen purists, they're going to say, oh, I don't like the keyboards. Look, I like the keyboards. I like the guitars. I like the whole thing. I think my philosophy on this is that I think Eddie got bored. Eddie got bored with just playing guitar, even though he was like the greatest guitarist on earth at the time and still one of the best ever. But, here Templeman says, when Van Halen uses keyboards, they should sound nasty, he explains. They should shatter your senses and make your ears bleed. Here was the band's first #1 record. All right, so you can't really argue with the success of the song. You may not like the fact that it steers hard left, hard right away from the original Van Halen template. But nobody seemed to mind, say, the keyboards that came later. Especially on a tune like Right Now with Sammy Hagar. That piano intro is fierce, and it adds so much drama to the song. And in this case, this is a fun song that many originally thought was about suicide. Might as well jump. But it's explained really well in the book that in life, when maybe you're not sure if you should take that risk, take that chance, Roth wrote these lyrics, I guess, in about an hour. He said in one interview he wrote it during commercial break of something. But he wrote it in about an hour, and the song isn't about suicide. It's actually about taking that risk. You might as well jump. If you're not sure, I'm not that bad. He's saying it couldn't be about suicide because that's the way Ted interpreted his writing. And he said, why would I be standing by a record machine? That doesn't make any sense. So again, that's how the lyrics ended up being basically not about all that much, but it truly is about someone who, is a little bit, I guess, tenuous or unsure of themselves, inferiority complex. And Roth is saying, hey man, might as well jump at the chance, just jump, take a risk. So that's what the song's really about, which is really the first time I understood what the song was about. So it's kind of cool that you get that much from reading. This is what you can get from reading books. So every so often, get off the internet and read a book. I mean, I guess you can read a book online too, but sometimes it's just good to have an actual book and just get off of media. So anyway, that's the story of Jump. Ted Templeman says, I'm still not crazy about Jump. But you know what? The song sort of speaks for itself. Is it overplayed? Absolutely. Is it too affiliated with Van Halen? A better song would be Ain't Talking About Love. One of the songs from the early days that just had a ton of kick and more hard driving guitars and stuff would be way more representative of Van Halen. Something off of Fair Warning to me is just the epitome of classic early Van Halen music. Jump became a huge pop sensation. The video on MTV with all those leg kicks and Roth being Roth. I mean, it's iconic. It'll go down as, one of the great moments in MTV history, if not the greatest. It's just, there's so many of them on there. But that song, that band, and their trajectory at that moment, they were taking over the world. 1984 was their year. And then the rest of that album, I think, is fantastic all the way through. All right, I'm done, but thank you for watching. Don't forget Patreon and all that good stuff. If you can help me out, it's much appreciated, and we'll see you soon.